Dee, 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 dee.
You are listening to Freshly Squeezed.
You sort of pull that away to find something that you are interested in artistically, you know. Once I've got that going, well, then it's just a case of putting all of those pieces in.
Hello, welcome to Freshly Squeezed, a new music podcast. I'm Jim Salveson, and this is your weekly hit of brand new tunes. If you like discovering the next big thing, you've come to the right place. Make sure you're following, make sure you have subscribed so you never miss an episode. So, recently we've been doing a load of festival specials. This isn't one of those. This is a regular episode, if you like. And in today's regular episode, there are 4 new bands to wrap your ears around. In a little bit, we're going to be finding out exactly how many marks in the band Fourmarks and hearing more about their latest tune, Reflection.
The world away, I know a place we can dance.
We'll hear from a new band, but with members who have years of musical nous under their belts, having been various parts of New Order and also Johnny Marr's band. We'll speak to Sea Fever and get the latest off their album Surface Sounds.
Thinking of love, get you done.
Plus, awesome and funky Wrexham band Baby Brave, who I think have got a little hint of Republica about their stuff, will be on the podcast.
Are you just in a bad mood? I don't know about me, or maybe I am too.
All that still to, well, obviously it's still to come. The podcast is like 2 minutes old. Don't be ashamed of it. You missed it. It's done. That is all on the way. Stick around. There's some great stuff to listen to. But first, we start off with 22-year-old singer-songwriter Gabby Rivers, who's changed it up a bit with her new tune. So if you're familiar with Gabby's stuff, you might be a little bit surprised by this definite gear shift. I'm going to speak to her shortly, but first let's get a little bit of Lipstick Karma on Freshly Squeezed.
I know I'm not enough, it's how you made me feel. Going back and forth, can't stop these anxious thoughts. I see you stare me down, stories you made up somehow. It's like I need the space, but I see you every working day. You started again, what's wrong with what you had? I found you're ungrateful, we had so much potential. So now I've seen your cracks, decided to backtrack. I've seen the other side, all of your dishonest lies. All of your dishonest lies. Monsters crept in, let you slip by. Monsters crept in, let you slip by. Monsters crept in, let you slip by. Monsters crept in, let you slip by.
New from Gabby Rivers, and maybe a little bit more pop punk, a little bit grungier than her normal stuff. And Gabby joins me on Freshly Squeezed for a chat. Are you right, Gabs?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you for joining me. We're here to talk about the brand new tune, Lipstick Karma. Now, this feels a bit different. It feels new, especially compared to when you look at tunes in your back catalogue like Moneymaker. It's grungier, it's dirtier. Is this a new side of Gabby Rivers we're going to see?
100%. Yeah, I was so ready for a change. I felt like last year I was just like, I want to start pushing my vocal ability. I want to start making music like bands that I listen to. Like, I want to start making music similar to that. I just felt like so inspired last year, and I was already planning on like taking some time out to just write. It's quite easy as an independent artist to get burnt out when you're constantly pushing on music. And I was just like, you know what? I want to figure this out. I want to figure out my sound, how I can push my vocal ability. And during that, we kind of like felt like we found it as a band. Like, me and my band were like, how can we make this work? You know, we all listen to the same artists. Why don't we try and like combine that and make it a sound? And for the first time in my career, I kind of felt like confident, and like I felt like this is what I want to make. This is the music I want to make. And it was easy, which felt natural, which is good.
How much of the feel of a song, how much of the style of a song comes from the subject matter, and how much is it the subject matter kind of is built to suit the style you want to make music in? Because with this new tune, it's kind of dark in a way. It's about deteriorating mental health. It's about a breakup.
Yeah.
So you need to take some of the gloss off.
Definitely, yeah. I found like during my writing process, especially because I've been writing for a good couple of years now, I found that a lot of the stuff that I like to write about is quite dark stuff and quite like sad, situations that I go through. And I never felt like when I was making tracks like Moneymaker and Bug Bite, they're quite like soulful sort of stuff. I never felt like the feeling and like the powerfulness was coming through. And so I was like, how can I create a sound where I'm writing about this dark like sad stuff, but I'm almost like angry? How can I show my anger through the music? And it just felt like this like pop punk like rock sound worked with what I was writing about.
I heard you talking about this song previously in another interview and saying that it kind of felt like it was full circle almost, because like I said, it was about a relationship breakdown and you actually recorded the tune at home where a lot of the subject matters of the song actually took place. Was that a conscious choice on your part, or was it something that you just kind of paused afterwards and went, oh, well, this is kind of like this is a completion?
Yeah, definitely. It actually just happened so naturally. And me and my flatmate, who's also in my band, we actually didn't realise it until like after we'd written the song. And we were kind of like listening to it in the kitchen, like we'd finished the session and we were listening to it whilst making dinner. And I like turned to him and I was like, this is so weird that like this situation, that's happened in my life over the past couple of months, where I've come home and I've spoken to you about it and I've cried to you about it, is now like being recorded like in this house, and it's all like happening all at the same time. And it was really nice, and it felt like therapy. Like it feels like I can go home and I'm in this safe space around these people that I trust, and they also understand how I'm feeling and they can put that into the music as well. And like it's also nice because my flatmate also related to this situation. He was like, I also feel this way, so like he helped with like some of the writing process, and it felt like it was meant to happen.
It's really nice that you've got that relationship with your band, that you're all living together and you have been together as kind of a unit for a while. How does that impact the writing process and the creative process? Because fundamentally you're a solo artist, it's your name above the door, but like I say, you've been with the band for a while. Does it feel like a collaboration now? Is it kind of like a band project or is it still a solo project?
Yeah, 100%. I do think like over the past 2 years or so, it's definitely become more of a band project. However, like we've always like for years and years and years, we've always had the conversation, oh, should we change it to a band name? Should we change it from, the solo artist of Gabby Rivers? But they've always said to me, like, I've been doing music since the age of 12 and I'm now 22. So like been doing music for like 10 years. And they've always said, you were the one that put in the hard work at the start. You were the one that grafted away and did all the rough parts. Like we don't want to take that away from you. You've built this image and it works. And they said to me, like, we are happy to be a band but it be under your name. And it's actually been really amazing to like hear that, because I've always wanted to give them credit. I've always wanted to like make sure that their talent shines through, and we've just got this really nice dynamic where we can post photos of the band, we can like shout the band out, we can talk about the band a lot, but it's still like comes back to my name because that's what they want, which works. And like, yeah, the writing process is always really nice because we are all so close.
Well, as a band, as a unit, you're about to embark on a pretty big step for the band as people as well. You've always been involved in like the Norwich, Suffolk music scene. You spoke really fondly of that in the past, but you're about to up sticks, go to the big smoke, go to London where the real action is. Yeah. What are the nerves like? How are you feeling as a unit at the moment?
Oh, like, to be fair, half of them are literally like so excited, and then there's like people like me, like I'm so used to being like a little country bumpkin, like I'm so used to just being content in my little city and like little countryside. But I think we need this next step, and I think we need like the big jump. Like we have worked so hard around like the East Anglia music scene, and like met so many bands and so many promoters and built like such a great relationship with everybody, which I'm so grateful for. But everyone that we've spoken to has been like, it makes sense for you to move. And I think that almost gives me the reassurance that, oh, it'll be fine. And like luckily enough, a lot of our musician friends have already moved up there, so it's nice to know that like people are already like, let's get in the studio, let's get writing. I'm just excited to just push myself even further because we're always hungry for like what's next. I think more excitement over anything, which is good. So yeah.
Good luck with the move. We're going to play your brand new tune, Lipstick Karma, in a second. Before I play it, I just want to talk about the kind of little hooky line that's in it. The monsters crept in, let you slip by, which has got this like really cool little vocal effect on it, which is part horror film, part Daft Punk. It's really cool. I like it. At what stage did that enter the process? Was that like a studio flourish? Was that something that you had in your head when you wrote the tune? Where did that come about?
Honestly, that came in that was one of the first things that we did throughout the whole entire song. And it was one of those things where it was like, is this is such a catchy part. It's so cool. It stands out. Is this the chorus? Is it the pre-chorus? Does it come in in the bridge? We were really, really, really stuck because we like to make sure that the chorus is the bit that stands out. However, me and my flatmate were like, you know what? This works as the build. This works as capturing everyone into the song. And I actually wrote that part pretty much straight away because I always felt during this relationship that I was going through, which is what the song's about, the monsters, which was resembling my mental health, basically. I always felt because my mental health was so bad at the time of the relationship, I let the way that person treated me, I let them just walk all over me because I was so oblivious to it because of my mental health. So it felt like it really helped, I don't know, get the message across by being okay, I'm going to call my mental health the monsters, and you are creeping in, I'm letting it all slip by, whatever, and it just works. And I think that for me, I remember filming a little video in my kitchen whilst we were cooking dinner, and I filmed that one bit because I was that is the bit that I'm proud of. And yeah, a lot of people again have just been I relate to that. I relate to the monsters creeping in and letting people slip by during my life. And I think it's important to almost raise awareness to that, being this happens. You can be going through a hard time and people could just walk all over you. So bit of self-respect, which is nice.
Does everything in your life happen, Gabby, when you're cooking dinner? It seems like
it honestly feels like it. Do you know what it is that we always have these writing sessions in the evening, because we all live such fast-paced lives and we're always working or doing music. I teach songwriting during the day at schools, which is a really cool job, but a lot of the time we will always be writing towards dinner time, and it's kind of we always aim to be done by 9, then we listen to the track whilst we have dinner, and it's just a nice routine that we've got going, which is good.
Very cool. Right, Gabby, thanks very much for joining on Freshly Squeezed. Really enjoying Lipstick Karma. We're going to get that on in a second. Good luck with the move as well. I think it's a big one.
Thank you so much.
Cheers for talking to me on Freshly Squeezed.
Thank you.
For Gabby Rivers, and I'm 100% here for it. Don't forget, links to all the artists featured in today's episode are in the podcast description, as always, including album number 2 from Sea Fever. That's called Surface Sounds, and Able Eyes is the latest single from it. And to tell us more, Ewan and Tom from Sea Fever are on Freshly Squeezed. How do, boys?
Hello.
Excited to talk about the brand new tune. That's called Able Eyes, and it's the latest tune from Surface Sounds, the second album from you lot. Now, the interesting thing about this tune, I think, is the song itself as a single isn't, to my ear anyway, necessarily typical of how the album sounds as a whole. This feels much more 90s, maybe a little bit baggy compared to the other stuff on the album. So what made you go with this song as a single?
I think with our band, when we're doing an album, we kind of make sure that every song has its own identity, really. I think we kind of wanted people to sort of maybe listen to it and think and not know it was us, if that makes sense.
Right, okay.
So it would be a bit of a surprise, really. And also, I think mainly it was a strong song, really. So we thought it would be good to release it as a single.
I think he also sort of says a lot about each individuals in Sea Fever and what they bring to the party, sort of musically. I'm probably more responsible for the electronic side of things, and I think Ewan and Phil bring more the indie side to the band's music. So yeah, I think it was one of those songs that was quite different for us, but in a good way. I think we always try to surprise ourselves musically when we're writing a new album, and I think that was mission accomplished with this one. And it's a good song. Ewan's sort of vocal range particularly sounds really, really strong, and it's a great melody. So yeah, it's a good single, you know?
It is a dead good tune. Do you worry that people, because I think this type of record will appeal to a certain audience, do you worry that a new audience might come to you via this single, but then maybe might not connect quite as well with the rest of the album? Or is that not really a concern? Is it more about kind of the musical journey from you in general?
I think if we can bring new people on board. It's always a good thing. We're not after a niche of fans or people who listen to a certain type of music. I'd hope to think that they might find something else on the album that they can connect with musically. It's a bit like playing a festival. You never know what kind of audience you're going to have when you do that, and it can be a challenge. But the aim is always to sort of walk away thinking you've gained some new fans, and I think April Eyes is that song for us.
The album is super eclectic. There's 60s vibes on it, a bit of Italian disco, there's loads of synths. It really is a journey when you listen to it. How do you make that hang together as one piece of work when you've got all these different inspirations and all these different sounds going on?
I'll be honest with you, it's not easy, because I think it's a lot of work, and you've got to try and sort of somehow patch it together. But it's also really exciting as a writer to try and sort of come up with a different sounding record. I think our aim as writers is always to try and surprise the listeners. I think you can hear it throughout the record. There's always little twists and turns that sort of surprise you, and we love that.
If there was one overarching musical touch point, I guess, across the album, and I know bands hate it when I do this, but if there was one band that was like, if you like these, you're going to like these, I'd say that New Order felt like a little bit of a natural musical bedfellow. It's the dark, broody nature, the electronica, the shared vocals between Beth and Ewan as well. Would you say that's a fair musical touch point that you've had across this record?
I think myself and Phil being part of New Order as well is obviously going to sort of influence us. And that when we did Music Complete, we took a lot of good things from making that record. And, these are skills that you learn and then you want to sort of use them. So inevitably, yes, obviously there will be a strong influence. But I'd like to think that there's a lot more to Sea Fever than just that. There's loads going on, and it's to do with all the members in the band, and really they're the influence really for the record. All the members bring something very special to the party.
We've all got kind of our separate influences with different bands, but then there's like ones that we all have in common really, which I think sort of blend into the music. You can't take influence from the bands we've been in, and you can't help but do that really. We tried to focus on our own sound as well. I think we've it feels like it takes a while for a band to develop their sound really, and now we have a sound really.
When we wrote the first album, Folding Lines, I think it'd be fair to say that people looked at us as the guys working with the big bands making a record, and this new album feels like it's Sea Fever as songwriters coming up with a new album, and some of the members happen to play with do you see what I mean with that?
Yeah, you're finding your voice.
Yes, that's it really.
We don't like the supergroup tag thing because we get that a lot really, and it's kind of like, I mean, it's an obvious but like sort of bracket to put it in, but we don't really see it as that. And I think through this second album now, I think hopefully that will kind of sort of fade away a bit.
Okay, just taking out my next question where I refer to you as a supergroup in that case. I think you mentioned the New Order connection there, Tom, and obviously you've kind of hinted that you've worked with Johnny Marr, you're kind of his resident bassist, you have been for years. You're both in the same camp in that you're both kind of like your bread and butter is being bassist, but Tom, you obviously lead in the band on that. Does that cause kind of arguments? I mean, you kind of like, you take a frontman responsibilities. Are you able to leave Tom to his own devices, or do you kind of have to stick your oar in and go, well, I think you need to do this in this way, or anything like that?
We're both strong-minded and we both kind of know what we want, and we have moments where we disagree, but I think those moments are good, and I think it comes out in the music, because there's no band that when they're together it's all goes smoothly. It just can't. There's so many sort of things to work through and things to change and to do and stuff, and you're not going to agree on everything. It's just not possible. And I think if there is a bit of tension and there's a bit of strong-mindedness, it's not a bad thing at all. And I think it really helps with the music, because at the end of the day, once you finished it and you sat back, you probably both go, I think you're right there, or you're wrong there, or whatever. It doesn't matter. The main aim is to get the songs right and to get them finished and make them good really. So that's no bad thing. Obviously there's all of us have been different bands and stuff, and we've all got a bit of strength there, and it's a good thing.
And as far as me and you and being both bass players, do you know, it's interesting you mentioned that. I don't think we've ever clashed about, who's going to play bass or on this or that. We're always sort of, if anything, I want Ewan to play bass a bit more on the because Ewan's got sort of really got into doing a lot of guitar work on the album as well as singing, which is great. But I'm clear, it's like, why don't you do it? It's like, well, not. So no, it's not been a problem.
Yeah, there's been no sort of bass-off like that. No, none of that.
I mean, what's interesting, and some of the listeners might not know this, is some tracks like Breaking Out, I think we're sharing bass duties. So I think I might have sort of done a little one part and Ewan does the other, but yeah, no one knows.
Ewan, Tom, pleasure to speak to you. I really enjoyed the tune Able Eyes, but what I enjoyed most about the tune is it took me to the album, and when I listened to the album, it was like every track was a bit of a surprise, and it took me in different directions that I wasn't expecting, which is one of the things I love about music, is constantly being surprised. So it was a pleasure to listen to the album, and I encourage anyone who likes this tune to go and explore that as well. But boys, thank you very much for your time on Freshly Squeezed.
Brilliant, thanks very much.
Cool, that, isn't it? And the album, Surface Sounds, really eclectic, loads of different stuff going on. A lot of it's very kind of electronic. It is quite New Order-esque, obviously, for the reasons that Tom and Ewan talked about. It is inspired by their experiences playing with bands like that, so go and check it out. It's awesome. And if you like that type of vibe as well, stick around for Fourmarks at the end of this podcast, because they've got similar influences going on. But before we speak to Fourmarks, we're going to speak to Baby Brave, who are making music at the funkier end of indie. And Jason, Steve and Emmy join me on Freshly Squeezed. How you doing, guys?
Hi.
Good. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. So, brand new tune out in the world. It's called Bad Mood, and this tune gets you just another step closer to that debut record, Sugar to the Tongue. Does the fact that that record is on its way feel real yet? Has it kind of sunk in that the debut album is finally here, or will it not really sink in until you've got the hard vinyl in your hands?
No, it won't sink in until I see that record, stick it on the turntable and pump it up loud.
That's going to be a real moment when we finally hold the record in our hands. We've been waiting so long to put out our first album. It's a big thing for us.
Well, it has been a long time coming. It's been 10 years in the making, this, as a band, Baby Brave, but there's been a fair few lineup changes along the way. It's a bit like the Sugar Babes, I guess. You kind of like swap members in and out every now and again. Is this incarnation that you've got? Does this feel like the final form? Does this feel like you've cracked it now?
Yeah, we can't evolve past this. We've found our thing now.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I think as a band, some of you are on the mature side, still a lot younger than me, but still maybe on the mature side for a band that is just kind of releasing its first debut album.
Just say what you mean.
It does feel unusual, but what has kept you chasing this? What has made you stay patient over the decade you've been going?
I think, you just go from one sort of EP. We've done a lot of EPs and things like that, and you just kind of evolve it. And then at some point we decided we wanted to do an album. I think that was the focus, really, getting a record made and going to the studio with Charlie Francis. He produced it.
I think we've just got a big bucket list of things and we just keep ticking everything off.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a bit longer than you would expect, but, it doesn't stop you from going.
Talk me through the creative process that you guys have as a band, because this feels a bit unusual as well. It's kind of Elton John, Bernie Taupin vibes going on. That I understand Steve creates the tracks and then Emmy, you write to those tracks. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had like various processes along the way of getting to a song, but for this record, that's kind of how we started doing it, was that Steve will be like producing all these tracks amazing in his little studio, in the zone, on his computer. He'll send them over, I'll put them in my car and go for a long, fast drive.
Not too fast.
Not too fast, but it does make me drive faster than I probably should. Yeah, have the volume up dead loud, and then I'll have to literally run into the house, get Logic up and record what I've come up with before I forget it. It's all a bit frantic, but it kind of adds to the urgency, maybe. We've also got like the most talented drummer and bass player who come in, and when they put their stamp on it, it just adds to it like tenfold. The transition from the demo to the finished thing, it just is something completely different.
Going back to the lyrical composition and the kind of song themes, when you get those raw tracks, those kind of demos, is it literally a blank sheet of paper, or do you have kind of a notebook of ideas and lyrics and themes, and then it's a case of jigsawing it together, or is it literally just kind of whack it on, go for your drive, and it's whatever inspiration hits you, that's what ends up on the track?
It is kind of, to be honest. Like, I think the song says a vibe to me, and then it will be based around that. Sometimes I didn't expect a song to turn, or to write a song about what I have written about, but it just inspired it, I guess. Yeah, I can't look at a notebook and I can't pre-write anything. That doesn't fit for the process. So it all is literally just what comes out whilst on that drive.
Does the theme of the song get dictated by sort of the weather and the traffic?
Yeah, it can do. Bad mood. Loads of traffic.
That must be a fascinating process for you to go through, Steve, because you kind of send this thing into the ether, send it into the world, and then it gets a story imprinted on it. And it must be really interesting to see whether that then goes in the direction that you intended it to when you were putting it together in the first instance.
I mean, it's amazing, but it never goes in the direction that I intended. It just comes back completely better than I thought it would be. That's one of the most exciting bits, really, just like seeing what I'm going to do with it.
Let's talk about the new tune Bad Mood, which we're going to play on Freshly Squeezed. Now, you describe this in the song notes as when you're with someone and you love them to bits, but then the mood hits and suddenly they become your number one enemy for no apparent reason. Emmy, you realise what you've done here. You've let the cat completely out the bag for women everywhere. There's an admission here that this behaviour actually exists, and that it might not be my fault. It's something I've done wrong. It's just kind of like a mood.
I can't speak on behalf of all women, but maybe it is a woman thing. I don't know. I'm sorry to all the women out there listening to this, but we all know.
It feels like it's kind of like a slightly fun, maybe slightly light theme compared to a lot of music that's out there at the moment. And I think often you get these moments when maybe the landscape, the news agenda is quite dark, and a lot of songs are about political landscape or impact of social media or foreign policy or anything like that. It's actually quite nice to have a song that feels a little bit more light, if you don't mind me describing it that way. Is that how you treat music? Is it a bit of fun? Is it a bit of escapism?
Totally. I think that's why we go to it, is like a way to get away from all of everything heavy that's going on. It does feel like an escape, definitely.
Finally, before we wrap up, you're from Wrexham Way, as I said earlier, and you've been doing this for a decade now. Have you noticed like any particular changes in the scene over there? Because it feels to me from the outside looking in that there's a bit of a scene developing in Wrexham at the moment. Obviously, you've got the Royston Club, who have made big progress over the last few years, and they had their top 10 album, and there's a few other bands coming up as well. Does it feel like there's a scene emerging? Does it feel like something's changing?
Absolutely is. I've been part of the Wrexham music scene sort of personally since, gigging. I had my first gig when I was 15 and I'm 38 now. So there's always like a new generation of people coming in. And when one of them really hits it off, so you touched on, the Royston Club, it's just the whole town are proud of them. It's amazing just to see the first clips of them playing in South Serran to a small group of, say, no more than 50 people, and then it's just snowballed. They're such an inspiration as to what the power of one good record and you're away, so it's just like gives us all hope.
Well, fingers crossed that's the effect the new album has for you guys when it hits in the summer, and fingers crossed we don't have to wait another 10 years for album number 2 as well. We're going to play Baby Brave on Freshly Squeezed. Jason, Emmy, Steve, thanks very much for your time. See what I mean about the Republica thing going on? I really like that. It's brand new from Baby Brave, long time coming for their debut album as well. This is Freshly Squeezed, a new music podcast. There is one more band to come. I'm going to be speaking to Fourmarks. Well, not Fourmarks. I'm going to be speaking to one Mark from Fourmarks. How you doing, Mark? You okay?
I'm good, Jim. Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me and having us on.
Thanks for coming on. So I don't often talk about band names because I think it's a little bit of a cliche, but I need to know something about Fourmarks as a band. I think there are 2 Marks. Is that right? Is there just 2 Marks in Fourmarks?
There's 1 Mark in Fourmarks.
Okay.
That's me, yeah. There's 1 Mark in Fourmarks, yeah.
But there are 4 of you in the band?
Yeah, that was sort of it wasn't by design. It was just the nature of finding the right components for the work, you know. So, but then it just so happens every time we play a show, people come up to us and say, "Yeah, you all called Mark." All of you. So, yeah, it's just 1. It's just me.
No consideration to the other boys changing their names at any point?
Well, we can only hope.
I think it's the way to go. It's kind of a Ben Folds 5 thing going on as well, which I really like. So that's good. And it just wouldn't have worked if you've been called Steve or Eric, 4 Steves, 4 Erics. Doesn't work. Fourmarks. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's also a place in Hampshire, apparently.
All right, there we go. Well, that sounds like some kind of 10th anniversary gig taking place there. So let's talk about music anyway, far more important. Now, when I first heard you guys, you really reminded me of a Manchester band you might be aware of. They're called Slow Readers Club.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with them, yeah?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them, yeah.
You reminded me of them, but they in turn are very inspired by the likes of New Order. They've got this industrial, indie, dance, bass-driven, synthy kind of sound. And New Order, one of the bands that are central to the sound of Fourmarks in your head?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're inspired certainly by a lot of kind of 80s sounds, you know, Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears, you know, really good kind of, a lot of stuff that's kind of like songwriting duos, but we've certainly had a lot of influence from those scenes, whether it's sort of intentional or unintentional. That's certainly how it's kind of come about, and a lot of the reference points we have, there's definitely new music reference points, but I think most of the time we're getting, you know, a lot of people sort of referencing us really as kind of like having a bit more of an 80s sound. And I think that's we are quite synth driven. We've got a synth bass, we've got top line synth, and then we've got guitar that's going on, and then live drums.
You say 80s, but at the same time, there's a genre of music that we've referenced quite a lot on Freshly Squeezed recently, that kind of noughties indie music you can dance to, or indie sleaze it was referred to a while back on the podcast. Yeah. It feels like there's a little bit of a resurgence in the scene for that kind of vibe at the moment. Do you sense that at all, that your style of music, that style of music is coming back?
I do, yeah. A lot of that kind of like 2000, we get that a lot as well, actually, that sort of 2000 scene, you know. Yeah, I suppose maybe partly due to like the arrangements of the songs as well. But yeah, absolutely do feel that. And I do feel a bit of a resurgence of that. So I feel like we're, in a good place at a good time.
When you are making that music, what is front of mind? Is it that you want to create tunes that make people move, that have a good time? Or we'll get onto the subject matter of your tunes in a little bit, but is there kind of a call to action element to what you're doing?
I think there is, yeah. I mean, for me personally, I sort of conceptually, I need something with enough kind of meat to hang on to, you know. I really do need something that's going to basically test my mind enough that enables me to kind of dig away at that idea enough to then be able to frame that or put that down, you know, against the kind of sonic backdrop. And then musically, you know, it's a lot of the way that we write has been quite a lot in the box, you know, where we're, you know, Sean might be coming up with like an initial kind of sound palette. He's coming up with an initial kind of chord structure. really bare bones. And then on top of that, I'm typically hearing that, and I sort of vibe a lot off the sound, and I hear a lot of stuff, so I can hear a lot of melodies going on. And at that point, normally a line comes out. And then once you've got the line, then it's kind of, okay, there's something in that idea. What is that idea? And just go deeper and deeper until you sort of pull that away to find something that you are interested in artistically, you know. Once I've got that going, I've got the sort of idea of where we're going, then it's just a case of putting all of those pieces in.
So some of the topics that you've covered previously in your tunes, politicians, bankers, acid rain, world crisis, quite heavy stuff. Is that more, from what you're saying, it's kind of to light a fire under you, to get you engaged more than it is maybe you seeing music as a tool for change potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think the ability to convey fairly big concepts in fairly pithy packages in today's world it's a form where you can put out, I think, quite big conceptual ideas that don't necessarily have a direct call to arms or action. They're just a reflection of the complicated nature of the world that we're living in right now. And I take a lot of inspiration from various sources, you know, whether that's like an Adam Curtis documentary or some kind of piece of information that I've seen that then sits in the back of my mind for a while. And then, you know, we get a sonic soundscape, and suddenly I can sort of blend those two things together alongside the electronics and the kind of rock dynamics, and actually put that together into a fairly simple kind of pop arrangement, you know?
In terms of topics, reflection, it feels a little bit more mild-mannered than some of your subject matter.
It is, yeah. I would say that's the case. It's sort of that tune came about later in a batch of songs where we'd covered some more heavy kind of topics and more heavy sounds. And then with that one, you know, Sean had this sort of house piano kind of going on, and it just took me to a sort of dance place. And I think with all of the music that we make, we move around the sonic landscape a fair amount. You know, each of those little songs is a kind of contained universe, and that one just sort of came together. And at the time, you know, I was having a bit of a tough time in life, and I had found myself in the North London Buddhist Centre for a while, learning meditation, and I was getting a lot of mileage out of it. Anyway, well, whilst doing this practice afterwards, I kept doing it for quite a while, and I found myself having these quite vivid experiences, almost quite visualizations. And it was around that time that we started to put this song together, and, you know, it must have been a first line that I had, which then took us on this path, and yeah, it took us to the world of reflection.
Well, I really like the new tune. It's first stuff I've heard from you, and I've gone back into the back catalogue, and I really like what you're doing. Like I say, if you're into that industrial, dancey, 80s stuff, there's definitely something in it for you. Mark, really good to speak to you. Good luck with Fourmarks. What's on the agenda for the rest of the year? You've got, 6 months left? What are going to be the highlights?
Headline show, July, August, London, regional dates around that. I don't have the dates for those yet, so you'll have to follow our socials for those, and then a range of new music that we're going to be putting out on a continuous basis up to a debut album. Exciting stuff. Well, check the socials then, but not before you've checked the brand new tune from Fourmarks. This is Reflection. Nice one, Mark. Cheers, Jim.
Emotional disintegration has got me dreaming of you. I've always been a little vacant, but if I close my eyes I can start anew. I can feel answers taking the anxious. My body is still, but in the darkness I'm dancing, I am free. Reflections all I see, they sing to me. Rip the world away, I know a place we can dance. Rip through time and space, and then back to the start.
Love that. In fact, I love all the tunes on today's Freshly Squeezed. You know what? I love all the tunes that we always play on Freshly Squeezed because I get to pick them, I get to choose them. If you've got any suggestions, though, you can tell me what you want to hear featured on a future episode. Get in touch. You can do it via the socials. I'm Mr_Jimbob on Twitter or X if you're still hanging around there. If you want to find us on Instagram, it's the marginally less memorable Jimbobs_eyes. But if you want to tell me about bands that you've discovered. You can tag me in posts, you can message me, do what you like, and we'll sort it out from there. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of Freshly Squeezed. Cheers for your ears as always. If you want to find more from the bands featured and the band who write the Freshly Squeezed theme tune, Spin Class, the links, as per normal, are in the podcast description. Do us a favour this week. If you've been listening for a while, but you've never left a review, maybe do that. Over the next couple of days, I'll give you a week to do it. You can get into Spotify or Apple or however it is you listen, leave a 5-star review, tell everyone what you think of this show, because it really helps the community and the podcast grow. Right, time for me to get off. I'll see you for the next one.
Freshly Squeezed, a new music podcast, was devised, produced and hosted by Jim Salveson. Sound design and additional production by Ant McKinley. Theme music, Blue Blazer, is written and produced by Spin Class. Stop.